This is a video about out-of-bag evaluation, and it's used to evaluate a classifier and also the Ensemble classifier or the voting classifier. Now, to understand what that is, we need to remember what I explained in the previous video about creating a new dataset from the existing or original dataset. And I said that there are two main ways to do that, and one of these ways is called random patches. And random patches can also be done in two ways, and one way is called bootstrapped data. And what we do in bootstrap dataset is that we take a given number of samples from the original dataset, but we don't take all of these samples, and then we replicate them so we can have a dataset or a new dataset that has the same size as the original dataset. So this is an example to understand what I'm talking about. This is a dataset, an example of a dataset, and we have here 3 features. And let's also say that I have 8 samples. This is first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth. 8 samples and 3 features. And I have here, of course, some numbers here for each of these features. So I have 8 samples, and one way to create a new dataset from this original dataset is, as I said, called bootstrapping or bootstrap dataset. And this consists of taking a random subsets of samples and use them to create a new dataset, and I'm allowed to replicate some of these samples. For example, I can create a training dataset that has 10 elements, or rather 8 elements. This is the same number of elements as the original dataset, and these 8 elements can be, for example, 1, 2, 4, 4, 3, 2, 7, 1. So we have here 4 and 4, so we have 8 elements. And notice here that I have some replications. I replicated 4 and 4, and also I replicated the sample number 2, his second sample, sample 2 and 2, it's replicated here. And notice that I didn't take the following numbers, so I didn't take the number 5, the 5th sample. Also, the 6th sample was not taken, the 7th sample was not taken. Sorry, the 7th was taken. The 8th sample was not taken. So we have here 3 samples that were not used to create this new dataset, new training dataset. And these samples here are called out of the bag samples. Just let me check that out again. So 5 and 6 and 8 are not here. 5 and 6 is not here, and 8 is not here. But 1 and 2 and 3 are here. 4 is also here. 6 is not here. 7 is here. 8 is not here. Right. So this is exactly my out-of-bag samples. In other words, out-of-bag samples is just are the samples that I did not use to create my new training dataset or my bootstrapped dataset. And the thing is, I can use these out-of-bag samples to evaluate the classifier that was trained with this bootstrapped dataset. And I can do that on all other classifiers. So for example, if I have another classifier, I create again a new bootstrap data set, and then I look for the out of the bag samples, and I use them as a test data set to validate my classifier. And then I can use this information, or I can use this out of the bag sample to evaluate my classifier. And this evaluation is what's called out of the bag evaluation. Now, just to make things clear, how do we do this evaluation? Say that I have, for example, 3 classifiers, C1, C2, and C3. So to evaluate this classifier, what I do is that I take these samples and I try to classify them, right? And the percentage of correct classifications is just the evaluation of this specific classifier. Say that this classifier had 60% of predictions or classifications that are correct, then I say that 60% is the accuracy of this classifier. So similarly, I can, give an evaluation for these the remaining classifiers. I can say that this one has achieved an accuracy of 64, and this one has achieved an accuracy of 90%. So this is the evaluation of each individual classifier. And of course, to evaluate the voting classifier or the ensemble classifier, I just average all of these accuracies. So the accuracy of the voting classifier, which is made out of these 3 classifiers, it's also called ensemble classifier, is equal to 1 by 3 multiplied by 60% plus 64% plus 90%. This is a way to evaluate the accuracy of my voting classifier. Now, there is something important I want to talk about, which is what is the proportion of out of the bag sample. The proportion of out of the bag sample. So as a rule of thumb, you usually can take any proportion, but as a rule of thumb, it was found that it's a good practice to take, for example, if you have an original dataset like this one, it's a good practice to take 63% for training, that is for creating the new dataset, for example, the Bootstrap dataset, and the remaining, so this is for the training dataset, and the remaining percentage of samples, that is the 37% left, can be used for as a test dataset, and this is of course called out of the bag, for out of the bag evaluation. So this is just a good practice to do when doing out of the bag evaluation. So in that case, for example, I have 8 samples. I could take, for example, 6 samples for training, and the remaining 2 samples can be used for evaluation.